Hello, let's try that again. I was live not long ago, about 45 minutes. And of course, technology, God bless technology, everything went wrong. So my camera, my mic, everything. So we're back to basics and hopefully you can still pick this up. So quick thing. My name's Kathryn McMann and I am a digital marketer. I've been doing this for like 23 years. I've previously run an agency. I now solely work on training and coaching, consultancy, and all that jazz. Right. The reason I'm here is because, sorry, I was looking at the wrong camera. Is because a couple of weeks ago or recently, there's a couple of events I've been to, and people are asking all these types of questions about digital. And of course, there is so much information out here. You should be doing these funnels, you should be doing these automations, you should be doing all of these sections and doing it all the same time. And this is how we're going to teach you. And it's kind of the private DMs through to creating automation funnels. Everyone thinks they need to jump onto the AI bandwagon, but interestingly, some people don't know what that is. So I'm going to clear that up. Basically, I thought I'd open it up and do something like this every week to help people to understand a bit more about digital and where it fits in and where you marry and connect the traditional with all the changes that are happening, all the technology that we have at our fingertips. There is so much, but it's almost like it's like having so many more ingredients. It's become incredibly complex. So I'm here to run an AMA and answer any question, no matter how small or big. Now I'm going to start off because obviously this is the first one. So a couple of questions, really simple ones are essentially, what is digital marketing? So when we talk about digital business, so I say I'm a digital business coach. Often within that, obviously, a lot of interpersonal relationships come up within that, and within partnerships within businesses. We also talk about, so we think about digital marketing as just the communication aspect where you have it's just the kind of outbound, the outreach, the bit that's connecting with the customers. And often when I tell people I do digital marketing, they go, oh, yeah, I'm on Instagram. Social media is one tiny part of digital marketing. It used to be a really powerful part and it used to run through everything. It still does run through everything, but the lines are blurred between the aspects. So you can still run your Facebook and Facebook community and group through the Facebook, but the traffic footfall of that has dropped, the interaction with that, which means you've got a different demographic, which brings you onto the ideal customer or ideal client. And I'll talk about that in a second. So digital marketing is understanding pop-ups, understanding pop-ups when they're relevant, when they're not relevant, understanding creating automated email marketing campaigns, funnels, strategies, using AI tools, also advising on AI tools. So there's social media, but it's not all social media platforms. So because there's things like Stream and Discord, which are incredibly important. For example, we predominantly used a Discord for a social community process while developing an NFT product and an NFT world, which is important. And I speak to most people and they're like, what's Discord? Because that's not in their world. Whereas you speak to other people who might be doing, I don't know, interiors or baby clothes or, and then Instagram is a huge part of that. But then they don't follow it on other platforms. So you've also got digital advertising. You've also got affiliate marketing. It really depends what your product is. So what is digital marketing? It is how you communicate to your customers across all the different platforms or mediums. Let's call them mediums, like an artist uses different forms of paint. If we use different forms of mediums, you can then tap in and it's how you connect those dots and the timing of it that's important. Obviously, then a lot of people go in, who's your ideal customer? Well, actually, depending on what you do, your ideal customer could be many, many different people and many different things. And it is dependent upon where and how you say it on those different mediums. So, for example, I do a lot of training. My training actually it's not a big training. It's not a big. It is a big. It's a big range of clients that I work with, but it's dependent upon which media it works with. So, for example, I work with inside organizations as a white label training company. And then we will, so it might be someone like Panasonic, for example, or it might be someone like Arjun Wiggins, which was great. And there's also the approach. So when you're with inside the organization, how you deliver that training, how that training is positioned, it's not going to be a generic off the shelf type stuff. It's going to be things that's going to benefit that business. That's the same in the context if you are doing delivering digital marketing for people, individuals who are looking to jump different careers as well. So what they learn within that could be quite different to what you learn inside an organization. Now, part of that, I'm kind of going to go off on a tangent, and I will come back and revisit some of those, but it's trying to show you that digital marketing can be anything and everything. And that's really important to know, that you don't necessarily need to be doing private DMs if it's going to pull too many of your resources in one direction when 20% of your traffic is there, but actually kind of your 80% audience is over there, and they might be split between different levels. And that's sort of how it works. It's very hard to think about because it's you could be anything. So this is why I want your questions, because this is about it being tailored to you. So I recently spoke to someone who is building a fashion app where people can, it's an app with a real life location, and it's tapping into specialist stylists and designers as well. There's a lot of intricacies in the back end, and how she delivers that and communicates that is as important, and it varies greatly. Now, obviously, being a startup, she's going to start with one particular audience in mind, but that can range it can reach any sort of people, but depending on where you do it. For example, if you're selling it on YouTube, if you're selling it through digital advertising, it might be PPC. If you're doing Google advertising, again, you've got a very different audience to what you would do within social advertising. There is similarities, absolutely, and the adverts may be the same. The copy within the adverts may be the same, but it's not all. It's very nuanced. Again, it depends what you do. So if you are an ethical toy company, you might just start and stick with PPC advertising. This is the direct call where people call out. You might tailor it for social advertising and just focus on that. Again, both of these require fairly large budgets. So if you're a startup or you're basically growing in the first couple of years, it can take time, particularly if it's a side project or something, you're developing and it's growing in different areas. And you never know, when you start doing and creating content, I'm going to get into that word in a second, you might find that you reach a whole other audience that's much more interested. So content, let me move on to that word. What is content? Well, this, again, people always attune it to social media, and then you can repurpose, which just means reuse that content. So for example, you have your comments, and you'll see this a lot in your Facebook adverts, for example. Sorry, I'm just getting my chair. You'll use those comments and they'll be reused inside an advert, but those comments itself will be feeding back as part of the advertising campaign, but they were actually part of developing and building that community. So that needs to happen that way. And I'm kind of going around because that's how the process works around, because you have to keep the conversation going and flowing, and then the adverts are on and off. That's principally how they work. Now, if you're thinking about this when you're from the perspective of managing that marketing campaign, that is really important to understand, differentiate between when you need to go on and work on your adverts, so when you can set it and forget it and then come back to it later. Whereas your community, you have to keep working on it. You have to keep building it. And it takes a lot. So that's when we talk about consistency. But you don't have to worry about that, particularly if you're working with an agency or a company that's going to, or an individual who's going to deliver that for you in that context. So you've got to use stuff. Right. Another question I got that was really interesting. Someone said to me, again, speaking to these businesses, this was another interesting startup business, which was a tea company. So they've started doing these health teas, really lovely, original blends. And they've sort of got stuck on a few things. And she said, "Oh, how do I get through this?" And I was like, "Well, that's part of developing a business. Is you could spend a whole day connecting up your streamlines, connecting up your automations, and then realize, oh, damn, I've forgotten X, Y, and Z, or actually that's not going to work because we've got to this point." So I'm a real look, sketch it out, do it, build it, and before we kind of hit the screens, because you get so confused. There's so much going on, particularly when you're then transferring that that information to other people through project management tools and whatnot. Anyway, we'll talk about that another time. So she talked about the fact that she said, "I'm going to be using AI. And what I'm going to do is set it up with my email." And I was like, well, the difference there is you're talking about automations and not AI. So AI is where people have, where it's prediction of what's going to happen. So that AI chat box will, given enough terminology, given the multiple different routes that's going to happen, it will be valuable for, so for example, in the chat box, or if you want to kind of put together a blog post, I would gently do that. Please don't use ChatGPT for blog posts, or if you are, heavily edit them. Use it for ideation. The same with presentations as well. They are scarily awful. But some of them, again, it depends upon the kind of information you're putting in. So I'm not going down, we're not talking about AI here. AI is another tool, and it integrates with all the other aspects you can do within digital marketing, within digital communications. We should stress that part of that digital communications is inside the organization. So difference between automations, I just keep referring to my notes actually. The difference between automation and AI is the fact the automation is you will connect the dots up to each other. If yes, then this. If no, then this. If, and so forth. If they interact with your email, if they interact with your video, we click here. So it's kind of setting the process and the steps, building it up, going down the funnel. So what do I mean by the funnel? The funnel is the sales and marketing funnel. The sales and marketing funnel being, so there's many different funnels. You've got your consumer, you've got your sales and marketing funnel, which is your traditional one, your AMA. AIDA is the really traditional. I like that one because it's easy to remember, but really it works any. So awareness, so it's bigger it is, you get all the people in here, then people will filter off, and as they do, it becomes more concentrated as it goes down to the end. And the bottom of the funnel is where people make that purchase, or they come back again, repeat, or they join your section, your community, or they join it, so you're streamlining down. So not everyone is going to be, people at the top are not necessarily going to be down at the bottom, but some of them may be in the middle. And those people in the middle may impact and influence the people at the bottom, but the people in the middle won't get to the people at the bottom. That is where we decide and how we filter and plan your strategy, which kind of tools, which kind of platforms you go on. So for example, you may have a lot of advocates, but they won't be your end buyer. They may even be your user. Again, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about a children's toy, the child will be the end user, and they will influence the decision of the parental buyer. So what you put in that advert, an advert on TV is selling to the child. An advert in the toy shop at SO level is selling to the child to some degree, but a higher level will be selling to the adult. The same with if you're looking at PPC, it will be selling to the adult based on terminology used by the child. And there we've hit SEO, we've hit keywords, we've hit advertising, we've hit understanding the funnel basis with the set intentions and the terminology people might use. There's also social media in there as well. And there's I should also say paid social as well, so paid advertising. There's so many different elements to it. It's understanding where you are. So we'll talk about ideal customer in a second. So your automations is something that you plot based on an estimation of how and where you would like to guide. Oh God, it's not. It's just one. That's your email marketing funnel, for example. But your automations are something where you might want to grab data and automatically connect it through to your CRM system, for example, to keep on top of your CRM system. You're still going to need an individual to double check those details, even to make those calls, depending on what business you do. If you are selling products, e-commerce based products that are quite small, easily to ship, or even ones that create, print, and go straight out, that's fine. That works. That's simple. You can set up the whole power of that business is built through automations, and then probably some form of AI customer service if you want to do that. You can keep it simple by making it deeply complex in the back end. And it feels complex because when you're in it, it can build up. However, whereas when you have automations can grab data and connect it, or it can just connect and streamline through. For example, me streamlining this through to all my different platforms. That's your automation. With your AI, it's like a predictive helping hand. It is an assistant that will help you, but you have to be very clear and direct. And I don't know if anyone else does, but I still do the whole, please, can you? Thank you. Just in case, cover the bases. Yeah. So that's that one. The other thing that came up in the questions last week, so speaking with these group of businesses, were quite a few of them were in the beginning stages. They were beginning stage of their business. Some of them weren't. But interestingly, some of them, when they're talking about what we have to do digital, and a lot of people talk about digital transformation. What does digital transformation mean? It can be, it works outside the business as well as internal to your business. So something as simple as changing the letterhead, changing the forms that you get and where that data might go on. So for example, you might set up and create a Google form that your potential clients, leads might fill in, and that data is automated and connected through and grabbed into your CRM system. Okay. It's really hard to know that that's going to happen, that process, particularly if you've been doing it a different way for years and years and years. So it's not about just setting up that automation. It's actually about stopping the bottleneck of people within inside their organization to stop them from creating more, making it more chaotic. It's actually easier to change and update automatums than it is to change people's daily habits and their perspective of how to use this information. Training can be delivered. Training, we can teach people how to do it, but it really is a matter of mindset, which is why a lot of people talk about mindset. It's about shifting your thinking, saying you don't have to, that piece of paper you took down of someone who came in, just take a minute, shove it into the CRM system, for example, and make sure there's a bit where make sure you remember to click, bang, remind, and then the salesperson takes over, for example. That goes the same as if you had an inquiry through one of your social channels, through an automated DM so that you can get apps, for example, when you're looking around and people say, write in guide into the comments and you will receive the guide. Well, there's apps that can basically, once you've got the guide in, automatically they will get sent through to their personal DMs. They will get sent details and that will be documented. And then you've got data and stats and everything off the back of that. So there's all these brilliant ways to interact and keep on the ball and to set it up. Now you can set it up, but you need to know what you're setting up at the beginning. And that's where the big bit comes in. That's where it comes down to pen and paper. So going back to automations versus AI, they're actually two very different things, but they can work hand in hand very nicely. Automations help you just help make life easier, but at the very beginning, it's kind of complex. It's a bit like saying, I want to move the soil from the back of the house to the front of the house. You set up an automation to make that happen. So it's like setting up beep, beep, boop, a robot, and they get it done. But you need to know, it's not about the coding the robot. It's about knowing that you need to move the soil from the front to the back. You can do it bit by bit, and you might be doing it manually in buckets. Bear with me here. I've got gardening to do, which is why it's on my brain. You might be doing it with buckets, but you know that someone else who's stronger could do it with a wheelbarrow, for example. And it's just being aware that whilst you do the wheelbarrow, maybe you'll put the plants on top to go with it, which is going to be more time efficient, and it's going to move all the plants that you need to the front. And you just, this seems like a daft analogy, but it sounds like it's quite simple. I don't know. Again, it really depends upon your business and what you do. Don't overcomplicate. That's why you've got all these people saying, do this, do that. Blah, blah, blah. It depends on what is really necessary. So sitting down and actually breaking down what's necessary. In fact, I have a business foundations document that would help you break that down. If you privately, if you send me a private message or an email, I'll send that to you. And that will help you break down those aspects. Lastly, burnout. So I spoke to people last week, and I have, of the 23 years I've been doing this, I have had burnout 3 times, quite serious burnout. And it really does get to the point where it builds. This is why I am a past, I used to previously run an agency, and I was staying on top of everything whilst managing the business. There's an awful lot there, and that something had to give. And I realized my passion is really about understanding the technology and how it can benefit businesses all around, all kinds of businesses. I've worked with theatre companies. I've worked with developing short films and short film series, to developing communities for NFTs, to marketing and working with technology companies, to individuals who've wanted to change their online brand persona. So we've used SEO, we've used all manner of tools to kind of shift their thinking, look at their branding, everything, and connect everything up. Digital is there, and it's fantastic with tools, but it really has to go back to the rootedness of traditional digital and pen and paper. So understanding what they do, and most people do understand, they understand the value of social media, but they don't see the value of tying social media in with other aspects, and how using the content within social media, how that can complement your not just your website, your SEO, certain keywords, terminology that you use, and then you put it into your social media. I'm sorry, it's been a busy day. So yeah, there's loads that can be done. But of course, it really is dependent. You only have so much time, which is why burnout, we talk all about productivity, but no one talks so much about burnout. Finding what makes you productive, what works, and also finding not only your limit, but the bit where you stop, where you put your tools down and you stop. Now, when you run your own business, you never really stop thinking about it. You are always developing ideas, looking at new avenues, especially even if you don't run your own business, if you're passionate inside the business that you work for. I mean, whether you work for a zoo and you might be the social media person there and think, how can I utilize and use this information to tell more people about these fantastic animals? And you want to build your budget, or you want to build a bigger sponsorship community. There are ways now to do it, and it's very difficult to always sort of to put that information down. But if you don't, you do get burnout very quickly. And I've learned the hard way. You go up and down, and the harder it gets to come back sometimes, and it takes longer. So I want to talk about that more, about business with balance, and how that also marries with life as well, and such as having a partner, having kids, all of that. You have to juggle all that. It is unrealistic to say you have to do but you have to do all of these things. You should be doing it now. There's a lot of people say if you're running your own business, you should be quit what you're doing and just focus solely on the business. But then you have all the worries of the balanced cash flow and making the business sustainable. Otherwise, you've lost a career. And as we all know, job market is terrible right now. It's terrible and terrifying. So things are changing, and it is it's time that we have to change and understand how that works, not just for the consumers, because they've changed. How people interact with media has changed. The technology that's there has changed. Obviously, those two are integrated and work hand in hand. And I'll talk about the conscious, not just eco conscious consumer, and the always on, the connected consumer, all of these aspects, because marketing loves an acronym, but and loves a terminology, but it's about keeping it simple and working for yourself as well. Because one of the biggest learnings was, sometimes, despite how people say you can get this up and running in 6 months, if you are a carer, if you are looking after multiple small children, you're a mother, I don't care if people say, oh, they've created this and did that, unless you've got help, nannies, paying for childcare, or incredibly strangely quiet children, which I always find bizarre, then it is nigh on impossible to get stuff done. Not because you're expected to flit around, which is why productivity and balance should work hand in hand, because it's all right when you have centered, focused time. But if you're always, getting hungry or whatever, or you're getting phone calls or WhatsApps to sort out things and family and life goes on, even though you're working towards things. It's about connecting the dots that work for you. And again, it is nuanced because it depends on who you are. Right. I said I would do 30 minutes of an hour. I would love you to join me next week. I'm going to do 11 a.m. on a Friday, and run another hour. So please bring your questions, and particularly just tell me about your business. This is not I can keep it quiet or not. But anyway, I can help and demystify what's going on out there. That would be, I know it would benefit you, and it gives me a greater insight in how I can then help you as well. Particularly if there's anything you'd like me to go on about that I've discussed already. All right, I want to say thank you for listening, and see you again soon. Bye.